Hi, and welcome to our talk. My name is Lauren Wagstaff.
And I'm Claire Ward.
We're here to talk to you about our continuous improvement service and the journey from inception to reality in 18 months. We originally did this presentation at the BA conference last year, and we're asked to present this to you guys, so hopefully you'll be able to get some value from it. The reason why we pulled this together was to share our journey and what we've been through over the last, what was 18 months, but obviously we're a bit further along now. But most importantly, we'd like you to go away with the ability to understand how we utilise our BA skills to develop our CI service, how we adapted industry standard tools, and what we learned on the way. Just for reference, we'll probably drop into CI, which is obviously continuous improvement, and also we're Sheffield Hallam University, which is SHU for short. Okay. So, like I just said, we're Sheffield Hallam University, and we are the sixth largest university in the UK. So before we start with our journey, we thought we'd just give you a little bit of context about the organisation. We have 31,000 students. We have 4,500 staff that support those students. We offer around 700 different courses over 4 academic faculties. So in addition to our sort of main course offer, we also have an income of 7.9 million for our research. We've got various lucrative industry partners, and we offer around 19,000 placements in industry per year. So all of that together gives us a turnover of around £266 million a year. As you guys will all know, public sector, working in the public sector offers its challenges. So we obviously are regulated, we've got volatile external pressures that sort of create the context in which we're trying to implement our CI service. In addition to that, as again you will all know, the diversity in the staff types in the university is also a challenge. So trying to implement change with academic and professional services staff is difficult to balance because of differing priorities. Even if we're just talking about sort of customer journey, our academic staff find it really difficult to see our students as customers. In reality, they view them as partners in their sort of education journey. So just the terminology that we use is different than any of the other stuff that we have to get involved with. So just as a summary then, we are large, we're diverse, and it's a complex organisation which is influenced massively by external factors. So this is the environment in which we sort of started our journey.
Hi, so Lauren's given you the context. Just to give you a little bit of context about the presentation we gave at the conference back in September. We were given a presentation under the track of work which was about pushing the boundaries of business analysis. So what runs underneath our presentation, I guess, is how you can use business analyst skills differently to push the boundaries of the skills that we have. And that's the track that we actually did the presentation under at the conference. So how we'll talk about our journey today is we're going to begin in January 2015, which was more or less the beginning of the journey for continuous improvement. We're going to talk you through how we identified the opportunity. We're going to very much discuss the business analyst skills, what was in demand, what transferable skills our team had. At the conference we had a mini breakout session, so we'll just talk you through how we did that. Lauren's going to talk through again how we adapted industry tools and lean tools to make them effective in our organisation. Talk a little bit how we quantified the opportunities to get the formal business case signed off, and then at the end we'll summarise the lessons learned and the future of our service.
So, in the beginning, so January 2015, we had a team of BAs that were funded mainly through corporate projects. So corporate projects have, since myself and Claire joined the organisation, have always funded our wages essentially. So as a result of that, our BA team has always fluctuated between 7 to 10 people, dependent on that need. Alongside that, so that's the core of our jobs. But alongside that, it's always been normal for us to do a little bit of support work from the side of our desks. At the beginning of 2015, the request for this additional type of work was sort of bottom up, and it tended to focus around, small process improvement initiatives or support, or facilitation support. And this was primarily because we had an ageing set of cross-functional processes that nobody really had ownership of, so we were trying to sort of help to support that. So through doing this sort of off the side of our desk kind of work, word of mouth increased the number of requests that we started to see at the beginning of 2015, but at this point it was very much still a bottom-up kind of affair. So we started to see a change in the types of requests at the beginning of 2015 that we were receiving, and it can be attributed really to the fact that we just had a new strategy, and it started to mention continuous improvement, but it was kind of a strapline rather than as a fully thought out provision. So, but even then, we started to see more requests from sort of senior leadership across the university for sort of different types of support. As a result of that, we decided to ask our director of the function at the time for permission to run a pilot on a larger sort of scale piece of work in our own area. So we asked for suggestions from senior leaders across our area where we could add value. So in the end, we identified a project around student prizes, which touched on a lot of cross-university processes. And as a result of that, because we sort of touched on so many different areas, again, drove that word of mouth. And it was at this point, really, when we started to do sort of a large piece of work that we identified that there was opportunity. At this stage, though, it was still really difficult to define exactly what it was that we were, what the offer was, or why people were asking for our help, but we definitely at this stage knew that it was something to do with BA skills. That we could provide that the rest of the business didn't.
So, as Lauren said, we knew it was about skills, and to enable us to articulate the opportunity that we knew was out there for continuous improvement, we went back to understand what was actually driving demand, what skills were the business asking for. So I managed the team at the time. We had 10 business analysts. We had a really good mix in the team. So we had traditional business analyst skills, the team members who were very good at technical business analyst, requirements gathering, data modelling, but then we also had people who'd come from a process improvement background, really strong skills in facilitation. Across the team we had very good strong skills in training, and we were used to doing training courses for the business. And then everybody on the team, obviously as business analysts, had skills in translating complicated concepts into visuals and problem solving basically. But what we also had from the team, which was really important, was a desire to get involved. So as Lauren said at the beginning, each of the team members worked on one corporate project or 2 corporate projects each. So in getting involved in these other continuous improvement activities, it just broadened their experience at the university and made their jobs more interesting. That desire was really important. So once we'd examined what skills we had on the team and really sort of reflected on those skills, we then wanted to understand what skills we were actually being asked for. So we've used a picture of an iceberg here because what middle senior managers were asking for out there with the business of us were 3 things. They wanted experience from across the organisation. So what my business analyst brought was a breadth of understanding on the corporate projects and from working with different teams across the organisation, so they could see the link-ups and how things worked. What they were also asking for was these 2 things, the shared terminology. What we mean by that is some people to come in and almost act as consultants and professionals who could talk the talk and have that credibility with the teams to be able to come in and run workshops and review processes, but also have that understanding of how to use tools as well and actually use them with large teams and challenging teams as well. So that's what was being asked for. We think underneath that iceberg, what people wanted that they didn't know they needed was objectivity. So our team could come in, ask the stupid questions, ask the obvious questions, which often lead to the real answers. They wanted common sense, that clarity, to be able to problem solve easily. The engagement, so our team could, because we understand the linkages within the university and the cross-functional processes, we could bring people together as well. So between those two things, we now understood what was actually being asked for of our teams in terms of skills, and actually the broad mix of skills that I could offer from within our business analyst team. At this point in the presentation, in September at the conference, we broke out and we asked the audience, and the audience I think was about 50 people in the room, to look at the left-hand side of this screen, so exercise 1. What we asked them to do was look at, so the majority of the people in the audience had business analysts or were business analysts from across all industries, not just public sector, not just higher education. So we asked them to look at what is your team's service offering now, what skills have you got in your team, and then how are they transferable to the continuous improvement team. So as I said at the beginning, this presentation was all about pushing the boundaries of business analysis and using those skills to transfer and do other things within the organisation. So we did this exercise and we had a really good sort of 5-10 minutes chat with feedback from the audience who hadn't particularly looked at it, taken it down to look at skills in that way.
Okay, so at this stage we'd done the pilot, we started to investigate the skills available to us. And as a result of additional word of mouth, because of the pilot, we started to see requests for much larger and more significant pieces of work. And as a result of these bigger pieces of work, we started to make, real headroads way into the lessons that we needed to be able to actually properly develop the service. So I'm just going to give you 2 examples of those larger pieces of work. One of which was a program of work that we did in student services, and that was made up of a series of 3 workshops that was aimed at resolving issues in the area. But also there was a second objective, which was to also upskill middle management in the area in order to be able for them to be able to do some sort of continuous improvement in their areas. So the first session was around problem resolution, so we used sort of root cause tools. The second session was around process improvement, in which we used SIPOC. And in the third session, we did a customer journey mapping session with some student reps that worked within student services. So alongside that, the second example of a larger piece of work was that we also were asked to provide a 1-day continuous improvement course. As part of this, we were asked to provide essentially a crash course in CI in 1 day and include loads of different tools, which, to be honest, we were sceptical about in the first place, but we did it, and as expected, it turned out that there was much too much content in there, but also what we hadn't quite realised is that we hadn't targeted it at the right level for the audience that we were delivering it to. So the feedback from this was invaluable for developing what we now run as a 4-module course, which Claire will talk about later. So just in summary, these types of large improvements, larger scale improvements, started to teach us that we needed to provide more cohesive support for larger programs of work rather than just coming in, doing a session and leaving. We needed to use the ambassadors that and the contacts that we've made throughout the university, because people at this stage, actually, in hindsight, went on to be able to champion the service elsewhere when we got a little bit larger. And also we needed to adapt the way that we delivered industry lean tools and what we called UCISA them, so that they worked for our organisation, which leads on to the next slide. So this is our little chameleon, which is essentially describing the way in which we sort of hide our tools in plain sight. So there's some examples of how we've adapted the tools that we needed and when we're actually that we use. And when we're actually at the session, we drew these up on a flip chart. We use all of these tools across both the BA side and the continuous improvement side of our offer. And really, the overarching principle is to identify what works for us and what doesn't. And as a result, we've barred ourselves from using some tools as a result of the feedback that we've received, or in other cases, you know, we definitely got go-to tools that we know are pretty much foolproof and will work every time. So, like I said, we drew up some examples at the conference, and this is a picture of the flip chart that we ended up with. And it's just 3 different ways that we've adapted the way that we deliver tools. The first one is just purely a change in the language. So, you know, the fundamental principles underneath are exactly the same, but rather than the standard DMAIC, you know, improvement cycle, it's not define, measure, analyse, improve and control, because we found that people just didn't grasp that terminology. So the way that we train it is that it's start up, investigate, problem, options and implementation. And just purely by changing the language, we've got a much better buy-in with that. Another way that we've changed the tools is to actually combine them and use them together. I don't know whether or not any of you guys listening will have the same problem, but working in a university, we find it really difficult to get to our primary customer, which is obviously students. It takes a lot to get a representative group of students in a room, and so sometimes that just isn't possible. As a result, what we try to do is, to sort of combat that, is to combine personas with customer journey mapping, which means that we can ask staff groups to work out personas based on different types of student prior to then running through a customer journey session, which would then, we found, help them to sort of really channel and the way that the students think, rather than, you know, always thinking about a process from their point of view. And then the last example of how we adapt tools is around just plain changing them. So you'll recognise the standard SIPOC, so the supplier input process output customers along the top, which, you know, we would use quite often as a tool to investigate a process. But what we also found is that for each process step that we identified as a result of doing the SIPOC exercise, that we also captured the ability to also capture any issues associated with each of those process steps, any actions for improvement that might come out of the conversation, and also to specifically apply RACI to each of those steps to identify actually who is responsible for this step, who's accountable, which again is just another way to combine a lot of different tools to get a richer output, essentially. So that's what we went through in the session, and that's how we use tools to adapt. We adapt tools to deliver to our organisation.
Okay, so Lauren's talked to you about the tools and how we do things. I'm going to go back to the journey now, and talk to you about how we quantify the opportunity. So if I just go back 1 second, so from January 15 to November 15, we'd ran the pilot and we were building the demand. And each time we ran a workshop, somebody in that workshop asked us to run a different workshop. And we were getting to the point where we were running workshops every day, and we used the sort of term success breeds success, because by word of mouth it just grew and grew and grew. So we called each workshop, each piece of work, an initiative, a continuous improvement initiative, and whoever was leading that in the business, whether it be member of the team, middle senior manager, we called those the business lead. So in November 2015, it was to the point where we could not handle the demand anymore, and I was lucky enough to be able to recruit an additional business analyst for one of the corporate projects, which we also used her, who was called Katie, to bolster the ability to cover the number of initiatives that we were being asked to do. So going to 2016, in the first half of 2016, that was very much, again, we were fulfilling all those requests. And at this point, in the first half of 2016, we were looking at probably 40 initiatives at any one time. Now, they ranged from very small local initiatives to quite large programs of work that we were running with the business lead. So the question probably now is, how were we able to do this with just two of us? And we often get asked, so I've done this talk a number of times now, and we often get asked about prioritising. How did we prioritise? So yes, there were two of us, but we had the luxury of a team of 10 business analysts, all with the skills that I talked about at the beginning. So we pulled on those skills where we could and when we needed to bolster our ability to do initiatives and to run big workshops. We pulled on the skills of the business analyst team. At this point, though, we were very much firefighting as opposed to making strategic decisions about how to create the formalised service. We didn't ever say no, we didn't have to prioritise, because the initiatives with the diaries, we arranged them around our diaries and around the business lead's diaries. One of the things that we said we wouldn't do was say no at that point, because we were trying to build demand, so we didn't want to put anybody else off using us, so we did use the rest of the team to fulfil the demand. In July 16, I was able to recruit another business analyst, and this business analyst specifically looked at quantifying what we were doing. So she was called Emma, and Emma did a lot of continuous improvement reporting for us. So she reported on the initiatives, she built dashboards, she gathered testimonials from people, because we had lots and lots of testimonials from people with good feedback, but we hadn't gathered them. We looked at the governance of how we were working, and all this work of quantifying actually enabled us to build the business case for a formal and dedicated continuous improvement service in the university. Now, it sounds huge, it's not. We asked the Vice-Chancellor himself in September 16 for one continuous improvement manager and one continuous improvement analyst, and he signed that business case off because of the reporting that we'd done. So that was the start of the formal continuous improvement team for the university. And essentially there was three of us, the manager, the analyst, myself as the business improvement manager who managed the business analysis team. But because the CI team was forming part of the business analyst team, we were able to flex with the abilities of the team. So in November 16, we recruited the CI manager and analyst, and that's Katie Wall now and Emma Morris. And that, when we recruited in November 16, that was 18 months after the original inception of the idea. And we're still now managing supply and demand, so we're still managing how to maintain that. So this slide is the A team. We have a joke in our team that we are like the A team. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the CI team. And I'll explain that reference in a minute. But in early 2017, after we'd recruited in the November, we launched the continuous improvement team. So even though we'd been working across the university for 18 months, we did launch it as the formal continuous improvement team at that point. So the A team reference is very much because since January 15, we'd been the team that it was easy to get support from. So with the corporate projects, and you might have this yourselves, to get any support from a business analyst, any facilitation support, any project management support, there had to be a formal business case signed off by the project board. But with the continuous improvement team, it was all about you pick up the phone, you ring the team, and you can get instant support and we can fit it in. That was one of our key offers, and that was I believe, one of our reasons why we had success, because people were desperate for instant support without having to do a business case, without having to fill any forms in or documentation, and we've always been very light with our documentation. So in January 17, when we launched the formal continuous improvement service, the service offer was in 3 parts. So the first part was very much still running these operational initiatives. So still now we have 30 to 40 initiatives at any one time. Again, some are very small local ones, some are bigger ones. We now have a Kanban board to track all these initiatives from when the very start of them through to when they're in progress, because some take months to run workshops, then second workshops, then actually complete, and some are quicker initiatives that go through the process. 76% of our new requests are generated actually from referrals and word of mouth, so that just shows how powerful the word of mouth is, and actually how important it is to run successful workshops with lots of people in, because they can really generate all your work for you. We generally now get between 4 and 6 requests on average, new requests on average each month, and we work across all 4 faculties in the university and all 11 directorates we have run initiatives in. The second part of our service offer is training. So as Lauren mentioned, we ran the pilot course. That didn't go so well, but it taught us a lot for actually creating a more successful course. So what we do now is we do a 4-modular continuous improvement course that is on our corporate training system that anybody in the university can book onto. It's been hugely successful. We've had more than 200 people now actually completing the course in full. So it's 4 half days over a 6-month period in 4 instances of the training, and that allows us to build up from the start-up through to the problem solving, through to the implementation, and really build up the delegates' skills and understanding of continuous improvement. It's completely voluntary, and the training is always booked up and full, and the feedback's always very positive. The third element of our service offer is very much one that we are still developing, and we've still got a long way to go, and that is the culture change. So in an ideal world, where we would like to be is we would like to have champions or continuous improvement champions in each area soon, and we want to create continuous improvement subgroups so that when people have ideas, they can go to their continuous improvement champion and they can bring them to fruition. But this is something that we still have to build. So as we've been going along, we've got some lessons learned to share with you, just to try and summarise the presentation really before we go on to the future. So I've got 6 lessons learned. So the first one is very much take people on the journey with you. So show them the value rather than trying to tell them. We very much had a lot of cynics about continuous improvement from the beginning, and we still have them now, as I'm sure that you will do, and everybody who I've ever talked to in continuous improvement experiences the cynics. We didn't try and convince them by telling them. We said, come to a workshop and experience what we can do, and very much we've turned a lot of cynics' minds around. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Second lesson learned is all about the skills. So we talked about this a lot, but I think this is what made us successful. We really did analyse what skills we had, what skills people were asking for, and we built on these, and we used these to make us successful. Third lesson is tools. So as Lauren spoke about, we made the tool work for us rather than us working for the tool, and we still do it now. So we don't apologise for recreating the wheel when we run a workshop. We very much build it to what the aims and purpose of that specific workshop is, and we've very much found in the last 2 years how to adapt tools, like Lauren said, but we're still doing it all the time, and we very much aim them at what the purpose of the workshop is and who's in the workshop. Fourth tool is ambassadors, so find your ambassadors at all levels. We, at the very beginning, we found a couple, 3 or 4, 5 people who, middle to senior management in the organisation, who were very much behind continuous improvement. They were our ambassadors and they spread the word, and it gives you an in to your business teams. And once you've got an in, when you can run successful workshops, you then get people in those that it spreads by word of mouth. 5 is don't be the victim of your own success, which we very nearly were. So we had almost a year where we were just firefighting, we were doing initiatives, and we weren't quantifying what we were doing or reporting. We weren't gathering feedback, and it was only because we had that additional resource to do that and build our business case that we were able to actually articulate what we were doing and the successes that we had. And the last tool for me is a really important one: do continuous improvement on yourself. So as a team, we're always changing, adapting, we're always reviewing how we work, we ask for feedback. We don't just ask for feedback, we use the feedback. So the training course now is so successful, but we continually review it and look at each element of it and say, does it work? Does the audience appreciate it? If not, we change it. Don't be afraid of failure. The essence of CI is try to change it. If it doesn't work, learn and improve, and I think we've very much done that. So the door is supposed to represent a question, so why open the door to continuous improvement for your organisation? So what benefits have we seen rather than what lessons? So we've definitely seen a change in the culture of this university in the last few years, and that's not just because of us in continuous improvement, that is because it's changing anyway, and the focus of the university is changing. But we've seen a renewed focus on the customer, and not just the customer as the student, but the internal customer as well. And we've really tried to focus on that in our workshops, but we can see people now getting that. The benefit for the business analyst team is that they've worked on diverse set of work, it's enriched their roles, they've gained new skills as well, and we still do that now, so it's still essentially a team of 3, but we use the business analyst teams. The people in the workshops are all across the university and who come to the training courses, we've very much seen you know, you can see them become empowered, you can see their morale changing, how they feel, they can see their processes getting better, they can see that they can own them, and that has really changed how people are doing their jobs with the people that we've worked with closely with initiatives. We've had some really good quick wins with a lot of processes through problem resolution and from looking at the process with a cross-functional group. And then we've also upskilled 200 plus people as well across the organisation. So just before I hand over to Lauren to do our future, we did the last interactive session very quickly at the conference because we'd had a lot of questions all the way through, which is always good because it was a very interactive audience. But what we were trying to do with this exercise was to build up, once the audience had thought about what skills they had and what skills were transferable, we wanted them to think about, just like we did really, what are the opportunities within their organisation where they could leverage their skills to build success. So what were the barriers, so what were the restraining forces, and what were the driving forces, and then any actions that they had come up with and thought about, and any takeaways while they were doing the conference. And we had a lot of people come up at the end who we could sort of sparked ideas, or they were in a similar position. And again, it wasn't just in higher education, it was in industry and other public sector organisations.
So we're back to our road slide, and what is the future for our continuous improvement service? I hope you agree that we've done quite a lot in the last sort of 18 to 24 months now, but our environment, like everybody else's, I'm sure, is constantly changing. We've had a new Vice Chancellor in the last year or so, and as a result of that, a complete strategy refresh. And as a result of that, absolutely more emphasis on CI, which is what Claire was touching on earlier. because of that, we've now got a really great opportunity, like Claire said, is to really, really work on that culture change from the top down, rather than, you know, working at it from the bottom up, which is sort of to date really how we've tackled it. So we're trying to inform discussions where we can around the benefits of CI. Specific priorities for the next 12 months include looking at our commercialisation. So our CI course, like Claire has just explained, is really successful. So we're looking at how we can take that beyond SHU at Sheffield Hallam University. Also, something that we're sort of continually struggling with, which is evidence and benefits of our service. This is a particular issue because it's very difficult to pin positive change down to a workshop, because in a lot of cases we will deliver a workshop, agree an action plan, and then hand those actions over to a business. So really the benefit is difficult to pin down because it's really dependent on how the business carry out those actions. So that's something that we will continue to struggle with into the future. And the other main focus, which is probably what we've done quite a lot of since the conference last year actually, is collaboration and networking. So we've got local internal CI forums that we're trying to set up, like Claire has suggested. We also hosted the Lean in HE North and Midlands event. That was just before Christmas, which was a real success. And also we're a member of the North of England Continuous Improvement Networking Group, which isn't just for HE, that's across all sectors. So with the commercialisation, the evidence and benefits, and also extending our networking, we've got a packed future ahead of us. So thank you so much for listening. I think if we had done this session live, then we would be asking for questions now. So instead of that, please feel free to email either Claire or myself with the details provided, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.